Order cancellation of $130 million. What? To announce something like that so easily was beyond a mere mistake or harassment. Email is hard to understand. A phone call is more reliable. Ignoring my shock completely, Mike, slightly raising his eyebrows, continued with a somewhat triumphant look. This was a big deal, and we didn't want to lose it. So we tried everything behind the scenes, but it didn't work. Sorry for the trouble, but you understand our situation, right? Such a selfish way of speaking. Seeing Mike's thoroughly mocking expression, my last bit of patience crumbled. No matter how much I owed Joseph, I couldn't keep up this obligation any longer. I couldn't help but laugh from the bottom of my belly. Then let's cancel everything. Fortunately, everything was already prepared. The groundwork might be a bit weak, but that can be quickly addressed now. Mike, who had been doing whatever he wanted, was about to face my revenge. My name is James Brown, 42 years old. I started my own construction company 10 years ago and currently serve as its president. Right after graduating high school, I joined a company called More Construction. The reason was simple. I didn't want to study anymore. I preferred moving my body to sitting at a desk, so I chose work over college or vocational school. But the reality of the working world I jumped into with such naive thinking was harsh. At just 18, I was repeatedly overwhelmed by difficulties that seemed insurmountable. However, it was Joseph Moore, the president of Moore Construction, who saved me. Joseph was incredibly good to a cocky youngster like me. He was both strict and kind, and to me, he was like a second father. I learned everything from him: how to speak, how to approach work, and even how to relax on my days off. He was also the one who suggested I go independent. You have talent. Of course, I'm happy to have you work at our company, but if you don't challenge yourself, your talent will be wasted. Encouraged by his support, I decided to go independent. Of course, running a company doesn't succeed overnight. Sure, I had handled many similar tasks like ordering materials, supervising sites, and training juniors before leaving More Construction. But it was my first time managing the financial side. Naturally, I understood painfully well the importance of managing money in a company. So, I studied as much as possible before going independent. However, I quickly hit a wall, as I had no talent in that area. There has been someone who has supported me to this day. That person is John. John is 12 years younger than me and was just a college student in the economics department when I went independent. But he undoubtedly had more business talent than I did. I will work for James's company in the future. I've decided, so save a spot for me, okay? John became my right-hand man under the guise of a part-time job during his student days. With him saying that, I had no reason to refuse. Since then, we've been managing the company together. 10 years after starting the business, our company has grown to have a dozen or so employees. John graduated from college and became a full-time employee at our company. The business is thriving. My independence was a huge success by anyone's standards. However, not everyone saw it that way. One such person was Mike Taylor. He was my boss at More Construction and 4 years older than me. He was particularly obsessed with seniority, in a bad way. He couldn't stand that I, younger than him, had become more successful. You owe me because I trained you, so you must repay me. Mike always harassed me with such words. I've been toughened by fieldwork, so I can endure most things. But there was one thing I couldn't tolerate. It was his habit of regularly skipping our meetings. Mike seemed to mistakenly think that I had endless free time. If we agreed to meet at 10, it was good if he showed up by 11. Once, he made me wait for 3 hours only to cancel the appointment. Even I couldn't stay quiet after that. I lost my composure and raised my voice. Mike, we have our schedules too. If unavoidable circumstances arise, just give us a call. Oh, sorry, things were hectic here. and I forgot to contact you. I'll be careful next time." But Mike didn't seem fazed by my words at all. He brushed them off lightly and continued his habit of skipping meetings. No matter how much I confronted him, he only gave insincere apologies. So next, I had another employee handle the meeting. I thought he was taking me lightly because I was the one attending. But this turned out to be a bad move. "What's the meaning of this, James? Are you mocking me?" "What do you mean? Did our employee make a mistake?" "Mistake? Why didn't you come yourself? You've gotten pretty arrogant since becoming president." That's the kind of angry call I got from Mike. "It's not like that. It's just that we also have schedules. Is it more important than dealing with me?" "It must be more important than more construction." Oh, hearing this would surely sadden the president, the employee he nurtured going independent and betraying him like this. "I didn't mean it that way. If you understand, you better come next time. Don't worry, I'll overlook this incident." Since then, I've always attended meetings with Mike myself. It's cruel to make a young employee deal with someone like him. I've often considered stopping our dealings with more construction because of Mike's actions. But then, I always think of Joseph. I can't tolerate Mike's behavior, but it's not Joseph's fault. Moreover, more construction undeniably supported me right after I went independent. Even though I'm preparing other deals in the background, the majority of our business is still with more construction. I now have the responsibility for the livelihoods of numbers of employees. Thinking of them, I couldn't afford to lose this deal. But my accommodating attitude only encouraged Mike to become more extreme. I could still manage if the harassment was only aimed at me. But Mike's harassment gradually started involving the clients too. "The next site. Be there by 8 a.m. The room floor will be hardwood." "Hardwood floors? But yesterday you said it would be carpeted." "Oh, that changed, fortunately. Construction hasn't started yet, so it should be doable." He began changing order details frequently. Of course, if these changes were client requests, I would do my best to accommodate them. We are in business, and we want to provide our clients with the best properties. But one day, I discovered something shocking when I asked the client, "Wait, you ordered hardwood floors from the beginning?" Mike had given me false information during the initial meeting on purpose, just to harass us. This time, the change was manageable, but if it escalated, it could impact delivery times. I immediately confronted Mike. "What? That's impossible. The client must have forgotten their order details." "That's not true. The client decided to eliminate tatami rooms from the planning stage. They had a tatami room in their previous place that got moldy. The documents I saw clearly stated that the room would have hardwood floors." "You checked that thoroughly. You're a real pain." "Oh, sorry, it was my mistake." "What?" But Mike showed no remorse. He apologized nonchalantly and then turned defensive. I neglected to double confirm. As a result, I mistakenly thought that room was supposed to have tatami until the last minute. But in the end, it was completed with hardwood floors, and the delivery was on time, so it's fine, right? But, or what? Are you saying you never make mistakes? Are you so perfect that you can't tolerate even one mistake from me? He even had the nerve to get angry at me. Mike started making it sound like I was the bad guy, which was despicable both as a person and a professional. But if he called it a mistake, I had no proof that he had deliberately lied to me. As much as I disliked his attitude, losing my temper could cause problems for me. So, I had to grit my teeth and endure it. However, everything has a limit. I reached that limit due to a major incident that happened one day. That day, as usual, I was kept waiting for an hour before the meeting began. The topic was a $130 million project due for delivery soon. "Replace this window now." The client requested a different one. "Excuse me, well, if it's just that. Also, make this area dirt. They want to plant street trees here." Well, that's barely doable too. Mike wasn't in this industry for nothing. His harassment, even involving clients, stayed just within the realm of possibility. As his tactics became more thorough, it became harder to catch him. Resigned, I nodded at Mike's words. All his requests seemed pre-decided, but were never communicated in advance. For the sake of my employees, I had no choice but to work late to reorganize the plans. Feeling a bit down, I finished the meeting and stood up. But Mike had one last thing to say, as if to mock me. "Oh, sorry, I missed this. The $130 million order is cancelled." "What?" "Oh, my bad. I just noticed the cancellation email." "What?" To announce something like that so easily was beyond a mere mistake or harassment. Even from Mike, I didn't expect such an action, and I raised my voice in surprise. Email is hard to understand. A phone call is more reliable. No, how can you end this conversation like that? This is a major issue. You can't just say, "Okay, it's done," in one sentence. Ignoring my agitation completely, Mike, slightly raising his eyebrows, continued with a somewhat triumphant look. "Well, but that's what the client said. There's nothing we can do." "That may be, but a deal this big shouldn't be cancelled with just one email. There must be room for further discussion." "Oh, I didn't explain well." "Sorry, actually, the cancellation was discussed quite a while ago. We had many discussions, but we couldn't change the outcome." "What? If you had told me earlier, we could have." Without losing his triumphant look, Mike shrugged exaggeratedly and sighed. He was good at pretending to be deeply disappointed. This was a huge deal, and we didn't want to lose it. So we tried everything behind the scenes, but it didn't work. "Sorry for the trouble, but I hope you understand our situation." Such a selfish way of speaking. Seeing Mike's thoroughly mocking expression, my last bit of patience crumbled. No matter how much I owed Joseph, I couldn't keep up this obligation any longer. I couldn't help but laugh from the bottom of my belly. "Then let's cancel everything." Fortunately, everything was already prepared. The groundwork might be a bit weak, but that can be quickly addressed now. Mike, who had been doing whatever he wanted, was about to face my revenge. Once I was resolved, I felt surprisingly light. I had absolute confidence in what I was going to do next. I lowered my gaze to avoid showing a triumphant smile and left the room. "From now on, we can no longer accept your work. I'll speak directly with Joseph later. Goodbye." "What?" I said goodbye to Mike with a smile, loaded with as much sarcasm as possible. He was left gaping in surprise, probably not expecting my decisive reaction. Mike's expression was priceless. Before I burst out laughing, I quickly left the scene. "Oh, it's going to get busy." As I left more construction, I looked up at the sky. The sky seemed higher and broader than it had a few hours ago. Taking a deep breath, I casually pulled out my phone. "Hey John, it's me." For a while after that, my plan progressed smoothly. With our future secured, John and I heaved a sigh of relief. Man, there was a moment at 1 o'clock when I thought everything might fall apart, but everything worked out perfectly. Yeah, I'm grateful, but don't let your guard down. In a way, this is just the beginning. I understand. Once the initial phase of our plan was completed, John and I gathered in the president's office to celebrate and plan our next steps. But just as we started spreading out documents for our next move, an unexpected guest burst in. "You, what have you done?" It was Mike. He must have run here at full speed. He was out of breath, his eyes wild, and he slammed his fist on the desk. "Mike, why are you here? You didn't have an appointment, did you?" "Who cares about that? There's something more important. Why is the construction site now just an empty lot?" He kept pressing forward, apparently having pushed past the reception staff. From a distance, I could hear the receptionist's panicked voice. I decided with a glance to let John handle the situation with the receptionists. Fortunately, Mike seemed focused solely on me. It was the best choice to avoid him taking out his anger on the other employees. Once John stepped out, I took a deep breath and turned to face Mike. He was glaring at me, breath heavy, and it didn't look like he would back down easily. The construction site was cancelled the other day, wasn't it? That's true, but it's strange. Until then, the construction was more than 80% complete. Well, it was close to delivery, but since it was cancelled, we demolished it. Mike's face turned even redder with anger at my words. He grabbed me by the collar in a fit of rage. He yelled at me from just a few inches away. Don't mess with me. Why did you do something so troublesome? Is this harassment towards me? No, leaving it as it was could have led to the building collapsing. And more importantly, we didn't want our name to be associated with a repurposed building in a bad way. Damn it, such nonsense. Whoa. Mike clicked his tongue and shoved me away with such force that I stumbled. Don't think such nonsense will be tolerated. It's not nonsense. And by the way, the demolition costs and damages incurred from this incident have been duly sent to more construction. Backing down now would be a disgrace. I straightened my collar, pretending to be unfazed. Mike, on the other hand, got even more agitated by my words. What? What kind of joke is this? You don't remember, do you? Please take a look at these documents. I sighed dramatically and continued. Mike snatched the papers and read them over and over from top to bottom. It's clearly stated here. It was always Joseph's policy, wasn't it? Regardless of the main contractor or subcontractor, responsibility should be equal. Are you kidding me? You expect me to take responsibility for something you did on your own? Excuse me. Of course, you decided to demolish the building on your own. Mike shouted, his face bright red with anger. But what he was saying was nonsense. It wasn't my decision alone. I explained the situation, and the client understood. That can't be true. The client contacted us to confirm why the site was empty, and if it would be ready by the delivery date. Of course they did, because it was your job. We clearly informed them. I'm sure your company will make sure it's ready for delivery. What? Mike let out a bewildered cry, surprised by my words. But it's only natural. Meeting the delivery deadline is the job of the main contractor. As subcontractors, we just create what we're told and abandon it if it's no longer needed. What kind of nonsense is that? You demolished a nearly completed building. It can't possibly be finished on time. That's not our problem. Then communicate that and apologize. Our job ended when we cancelled the construction and sent the invoice to you. What? You ruined my schedule, and you have the nerve to say that. Those words were a complete give back at Mike. But without a chance to point that out, he continued. If it weren't for your unnecessary actions, we could have handed it over to another company to complete the construction. We could have asked the client for a slight extension, and everything would have been fine. Why did you do this? That sounds like poor planning on your part. Maybe that's why the entire $130 million deal fell through. You? Yes, I know, because the client asked us to take over the entire construction from scratch instead. When I informed the client about the whole incident, they were furious with Mike. They said they couldn't make a $130 million purchase under such a person anymore. As a result, the construction was entrusted entirely to us. It's our company's first large-scale main contractor project. The project has already started. And although the delivery will be 6 months later than initially planned, the contract is mutually beneficial with a slight discount and future cooperation in mind. I see. That's how it is. You plotted this, didn't you? You staged this to disgrace me and more construction. That's impossible. I owe Joseph for raising me from a high school graduate to where I am now. I only feel gratitude, no resentment. Besides, more construction won't suffer from this. What? Shall I explain that part? At that moment, the door to the room opened again. Standing there was John, who I had earlier entrusted with handling the receptionists. Seeing John, Mike looked stunned. In his anger, he hadn't realized who John was. Now, looking at John again, Mike pointed a trembling finger at him and scrutinized him from head to toe. "John, the young master. Please stop calling me that. I'm 30 now. Besides, you have no right to call me young master." "Why are you here?" "Because I'm an employee here, of course. Yes, my father is the president of More Construction. But I'm not taking over for him. I'm determined to work hard here until the end." "That's right. John is actually Joseph Moore's son, the president of More Construction. For some reason, John admired me since he was a child and insisted on working with me when I went independent. He said it was fine because his younger brother would take over the family business. That's beside the point. Let's get to the main topic." "Why?" "Oh, and just to clarify, this decision isn't because I'm an employee here. My father, President Moore, has decided that he can no longer keep an employee like you in the company." John handed over a piece of paper and continued. His expression was a perfectly polite smile, which only made the situation more intimidating. "Mike Taylor, you are being fired from that company. You have a grace period, but it will likely be filled with apologies to all involved parties." "Fired? That's..." "Of course, you can resign voluntarily. But the president has no intention of keeping you employed. You will soon leave More Construction and take responsibility for the damages you've caused." The paper John handed over was a printout of an email Joseph had sent just a few minutes earlier. It was a response to the compensation claim we had sent regarding this incident. Additionally, I included all the various things Mike had forced on me, but that's just within the margin of error. This can't be happening. I've worked for Joseph for decades. Working isn't the only way to benefit the company. People like you, who oppress others and wield non-existent authority, bring harm to the company. Keeping you employed is undoubtedly a risk. But You don't get it, do you? This is the president's decision. If you doubt it, go back to the company and confirm it yourself. You'll get the same answer. No one in this room was going to extend a helping hand to Mike, who slumped his shoulders in defeat. After being in a daze for a while, Mike finally came to his senses and staggered out of our office. I watched him leave, having no energy left to argue. Later, I heard that Mike followed John's advice and spoke directly to Joseph. But the result was as expected. Given the massive damage he caused, Joseph told him to resign voluntarily before being fired. As a result, Mike spent some time visiting the subcontractors, looking like a shell of his former self. However, as one might expect, Mike had been making unreasonable demands on other subcontractors besides us. Because of that, his reputation was terrible even outside our dealings. His visits revealed everything to the higher-ups, and he resigned several months earlier than planned. James Brown, I will never forgive you. And now, Mike, blinded by rage, was waiting for me outside the company. Mike, you're here again, but we have nothing more to discuss. Because of you, I lost my job. On top of that, I have debts. I have nothing left to lose. I see. So, what do you want from me? Surely, you're not asking for money. At my words, Mike gave a sinister smile. That self-deprecating smile hid a chilling madness. Yeah, getting a little money from you would mean nothing to me. Then what do you want? This. Shouting at the top of his lungs, he raised his fist and charged at me. I instinctively dodged it. What are you doing? Shut up, don't dodge. Take my pain and anger. Hey. It was clear that this was nothing but misplaced anger, yet Mike acted as if it was perfectly justified. I hadn't been in many fights, but my reflexes were decent enough to keep dodging his attacks. Calm down. This isn't the place to add more crimes to your record. It doesn't matter anymore. But Mike's persistence was incredible. His final, desperate punch landed squarely on my face. But Mike's punch was literally reckless. After hitting me, he lost his balance and crashed to the floor. Screams erupted from the employees around us. Someone, call the police. I could taste blood in my mouth. probably from a cut inside. However, my mind was strangely calm. While dealing with Mike, who had hit his head and was now staggering, I thought about what to do next. Serves you right. I felt much more pain than this. All of it was your own fault, so are you ready to give up now? You're still so infuriating. If you want, I'll give you another punch. But Mike's next punch never reached me. The nearby employees restrained him. Mike was held down on the floor until the police arrived. Let go. I'm not done yet. Enough already. It was John who stopped Mike's struggles. How much trouble do you have to cause James and my father? You attacked James out of personal grudges, damaging my father's company's reputation in the process. Feel my pain. James's pain was far worse. John. That's nonsense. Joseph trusts me. If this guy hadn't rebelled, no one would have been hurt. Do you really think so? John locked eyes with Mike and continued. His eyes were filled with anger. My father knew about this. He knew and told James it was okay to stop the deal. The only reason it continued was because of James's goodwill. What? Mike widened his eyes and looked at me. I sighed and continued from where John left off. You talk too much. I didn't plan to say that. Sorry, but... What? You're joking, right? It feels like a joke to me too, but it's the truth. It's all in the past now. I originally worked at Moore Construction. As a new employee, my first mentor was Mike. I haven't forgotten what I owe him from that time. Even though he resented me and harassed me, I had a faint hope that he might return to how he was back then. That's why I continued the deal until now. But he completely lost his way. There's nothing more I can do. Mike, let's end this. Stop adding more crimes to your record. I don't know what Mike thought of my words. But from that moment until the police took him away, he quietly stared at the floor. However, I didn't need to worry about it anymore. I left the rest to the police and went to the hospital for treatment. Even though the injuries were minor, these kinds of wounds are something I'd rather avoid as I get older. Mike was later fined and ordered to pay compensation. Already burdened with the compensation claim from Moore Construction and having lost his job, Mike quickly found himself drowning in debt. He lost his home and sometimes spent nights under bridges. Moreover, the incident further spread Mike's bad reputation within the construction community. As a result, Mike couldn't find another job and eventually disappeared to some faraway place. James, about the next site. Meanwhile, John has become even more dedicated to managing our business and is now arguably more hardworking than I am. I reviewed the documents yesterday. The revisions are done, so take them with you. After the incident with Mike, our company gradually shifted to becoming a main contractor. It's the true sign of our company's growth. But is it really okay? Even though it's my father's company, so much has happened. Well, I did have my doubts. But no matter what, I can't forget my debt to Joseph. Besides, we have you here. If that company ever goes astray again, we need you to keep an eye on it. We continued doing business with Moore Construction, for the reasons I told John. And also because it would be impossible for him to completely sever ties with that company. That's true, but James, aren't you being too kind? Not really. I just stubbornly focus on the work in front of me. I leave everything else to you. You say that, but you're the one working the hardest here. You're not young anymore. If you overdo it, you'll collapse. Ha. If that happens, you'll take over for me. It's partly about repaying Joseph. But beyond that, it's also my way of thanking John for always looking up to me. No way. This company belongs to you. My greatest joy is working under you. Got it. But it seems I won't be able to step down as president of this company for a while.